And that's how I got myself back into a depressive state. Because again, I thought, do you know what? If this is my life now, I don't want to live like this. I actually don't want to live.
Lauren, how did you find the carnivore diet?
So growing up, I had a lot of issues, a lot of illnesses. I had chronic ear infections, chronic UTIs, and strep throat, which because of that, I had to have a lot of antibiotics. So growing up, that was my history really. I was quite a poorly child. I was right from the beginning. And I had antibiotics probably 2 or 3 times a year. Um, Even into my teens, I was having really, really bad UTIs. And I went to a hospital and they put a camera in to see what was going on. And they said that I had a lot of, from where I'd had a lot of UTIs, I had a lot of debris left and I had to go on a long course of strong antibiotics, which was 2 months, to clear this debris out effectively. So that's what I did, and that was probably like my late teenage years. And then I increasingly was getting ear infections, and they were just getting, as I had them from a child, and they were just getting worse and worse and worse, even throughout my teenage years. Um, Got to last year, and I became really, really sick. I had a lot of symptoms. I had something called LPR, which they also call silent reflux, which is it presented with a lump in the throat and a feeling of obstruction, like I couldn't swallow. So every time I ate something, I felt like I was getting a blockage. I couldn't, I just couldn't swallow very well. I had lots of mucus in my throat. I was getting a lot of food allergies, so anything that I was eating, I was reacting to. I would get styes in my eyes, my eyelids would swell. I just became really, really sick. And I started, another funny symptom was I got a really, really sore mouth and had lots of ulcers on my tongue. So I thought this perhaps was again a reaction to food. But it was very frustrating because everything that I ate, I basically reacted to, and this was just really out of the blue. Nothing happened to cause this. It was just one moment I was fine, next moment I had this lump and all this going on. So it was very frustrating. I would also I'd wake up in the morning and my glands were so swollen. Again, I had like a job to swallow. So that's where it all started, really, with me getting sick and not very well. And so I went to the doctor and obviously described all my symptoms. And they, of course, put me on some medication, which was omeprazole, which is an acid blocker. And they said, go away and take that. And within a few weeks, you should start feeling better. So I did that. I went away, took this acid blocker, and I did not get better. In fact, I got worse. So I went back to the doctor again. At this time, I was getting quite depressed. I was very, very low, because I was obviously not feeling very well. I didn't want to do anything because of how I was feeling. So I went back to the doctor and they said, yeah, this obviously isn't working for you. We're going to double your dose. So I was on a 20 milligram and I went on to a 40 milligram. And not only are we going to double your dose, but we are also going to put you on it 2 times a day. So
Sorry, that's the omeprazole.
yeah. So I came away thinking I was actually really happy with that result because I'm thinking, oh yes, like if the small amount didn't work and the once a day didn't work, perhaps upping it and twice a day will be the answer for me. So I really believe that that actually was going to work for me. So I come away quite happy with my results from the doctor. Began taking the extra, and again, I just could feel myself getting worse. And this lump in my throat was getting more and more prominent, and none of the other reactions were going away. I still had all the swellings in my eyes, the styes, the ulcers, and the sore mouth. So I sort of got to a point where I really, really was in a bad way and I couldn't eat anything. I actually stopped eating because for me it was easier to not eat because of this obstruction in my throat. So I stopped eating and obviously I lost a lot of weight. And it was an awful time for me. I just sat on the sofa. I didn't want to do anything. I've got children. I got 3 children. I didn't even want to look after them. I was so wrapped up in how I felt, not very well. And I got myself into a real depressive state, and I was really, really bad. So I decided I'm going to have to go back to the doctor because something's not right and something's got to be done here. So I went to the back to the doctor, and they put me in for an endoscopy, which is the camera down into the stomach. And that revealed that I had grade A esophagitis, which is to do with the acid like reflux coming back up into my esophagus and burning the esophagus and causing scar tissue. And they also said that they could see in my stomach that I just had slight low, I think it was low stomach acid. Whereas my whole life with acid reflux, I thought that I had too much stomach acid. So anyway, so I come back from the hospital, rang my doctor and said what had gone on and what am I supposed to do now. And again, they said you have to continue with the omeprazole. With esophagitis, omeprazole is the answer. That's what they said. So I come away and I took again the two times a day, 40 milligrams 2 times a day. And I thought I'm just going to have to give this a bit longer. Perhaps I haven't given it long enough. And I was on Google, like you do, Googling how long it would take to recover your esophagitis, sorry. And it did say on there that you might have to wait 2 or 3 months. So I thought, oh, that's okay. I haven't been doing it for too long. So maybe I just got to give myself a bit more time. But again, as a few more days went on, I was just really getting worse by the day, and I just could not get this. Just something wasn't right. I was very, very ill, and I got to the point where I was majorly, severely depressed, where I was actually suicidal. I I could not cope with how I was feeling. Nobody could seem to help me. And I just, like I said before, I was just sat on the sofa. I didn't want to get out of bed in the mornings. I did literally, I didn't want to be alive. That's as simply as I can put it. I just did not want to live anymore. If I had to live feeling like that. So obviously my family became very concerned for me, and they all sort of said, I think you're going to have to go back to the doctor and see if they can help you with your depression. Now, I knew why I was depressed. I thought if I could switch a switch and somebody said to me, you can eat exactly what you want and you can feel better, I would be absolutely fine. I never suffered with depression in the past before. I wasn't a depressive person, so I knew why I was feeling depressed. I had a reason. So I wasn't quite. I did think to myself, I'm not sure if I need to go to the doctor about it because I know why I'm depressed. But then on the other hand, I know that I had children, and obviously being suicidal and feeling how I was is obviously not great either. So I did take their advice and I went to the doctor, and of course the doctor put me on some antidepressants. So again, I always sort of felt like a sense of security after going to the doctor, feeling like I've been given this medicine, almost like it is a magic pill that they say, here you go, take this antidepressant, and then I'm just suddenly going to feel happy. That's what I thought.
It's always
So
like the doctor's got me covered, right? It's
yeah,
like,
I
okay, well,
honestly had so much trust in them. I would just literally put my life in their hands. I just had so much trust in them. Um, so I came home again, started this medication. So at this point, I was on the omeprazole 2 times a day and the antidepressant. I started taking the antidepressant, and the first week I didn't know I could get any worse from where I was, but my depression got even worse. This first week was absolutely horrendous. I'm not quite sure what a mental breakdown is, but I'm pretty sure that I had one. I remember I was just out milking the cows one evening, because I thought that would be a good idea to keep my mind distracted. Instead of being sat in home on the sofa, I'm going to go out and milk the cows this afternoon, which I did. And I sat down on the milking parlour floor and I just cried and cried and cried and cried. And my husband's dad came out and he found me and he was like, "Oh my God, what is the matter?" And I just cried and I sobbed and just said, I just don't want to be here anymore and I don't know what to do about it. And to me, I think, again, I don't know what the definition of a mental breakdown is, but I think that was a mental breakdown. I actually was worried that I might have had to have been sectioned or something because my mind was just, it was gone. I was gone. So that was the first week. And then again with the antidepressants, we did read that they can make you a lot worse before you get better. So I thought, well, I'm just gonna have to push through it. And once I'm over this worst stage, I'll come out feeling really, really good. So I took them for 2 weeks and I didn't get any better. And off my own back, I decided that's enough. I'm not taking these because they're not doing anything for me. If anything, they're making me completely worse. So I, off my own back, took myself off of those. In desperation, I then seeked out a lady who was a herbal practitioner, a naturopath, who studied herbal medicine. In the meantime, I forgot to say, I was constantly, my life was sat on the sofa on Google, desperately trying to find answers of how to get myself better. On YouTube, how to cure myself of LPR, how to cure acid reflux, food allergies. You name it, I literally read every single thing going on how to get myself better. I was just desperate. All I wanted to be was to be healthy for me and my family. That's all I wanted. And in this time as well, I really had a quite an awakening, which I'm very grateful for, which made me realize how or what is important in life. So everything, material, money, everything went completely out the window because all I thought was, all I want is my health. That's all I want for me and my family. I don't care at the time, honestly, if we had to live in a little hut outside in a cardboard box. If I'm healthy, that's all that I need for me and my family. And I had this, like I said, I'm really thankful for this now because I've learned now that that is the one thing in life that we need. We don't need anything else as human beings. We just need our health. But anyway, so I found this lady on the internet who studies herbal medicine, and I thought I'll give that a shot because I will literally, at this point, I was just going to give anything a shot. So I found her and I went to her and she set me aside a 2 hour appointment, which I thought, oh, that's a long time. I'm not sure I'm going to need 2 hours compared to your 5 minutes your doctor gives you. And I always thought like your doctor can see you in 5 minutes and sort out your problems in that time. So why the hell do I need 2 hours with her? But anyway, so I turned up at her house and she was the first person to sit me down and she went through everything. She wanted to know my history. She wanted to know if I had like my antibiotic usage in the past, if I'd had antibiotics, if I'd had any vaccines, any health issues that I had recently as an adult, and especially what I was eating. And to me at the time, I was thinking, I don't I don't really know like why you want to know the ins and outs of what I'm eating because she literally wanted I had to do a diary for her. So I had to do a diary and record every single thing that I was eating. And straight away she looked at it and she said, "You have a lot of gluten and you have a lot of dairy." And I was like, "Yeah." Okay, what does that mean? And she said, "I want you to go away and cut out the gluten and cut out the dairy." And at the time, that was, remember, I was very depressed as well and just wishing that I could just eat normally. They were not the words that I wanted to hear. I thought, God, I can't eat much as it is anyway. If I cut out gluten and dairy, I'm literally left to nothing. I won't be eating anything. But anyway, like I said, I was willing to try absolutely anything. So I went away and that's what I did. So I cut out the dairy and I cut out the gluten. And I did start getting better very rapidly. So it got rid of the lump in my throat, and the mucus in my throat started to clear. But it didn't get rid of my food allergy reaction. So I was still having the swelling in my eyes. I was waking up with the swollen glands. I had a blocked nose every single morning, like stuffy sinuses, and a sty in my eye seemed to be a really big reaction for me. If I ate something that didn't agree with me, like almost instantly, I would get a sty on my eye or an ulcer appear on my tongue. So I did her diet for quite a while. And as I said, I was feeling a lot better. And I did actually gain a lot more energy in that time. So I was up off of the sofa and I could actually perform my daily tasks now, with cutting these things out. And then I would regularly go back to her. I was going back to her every 2 weeks, every 2 or 3 weeks or so. So I got to the point where I went back and I said, yeah, I'm feeling like this, but I'm still getting these reactions in my, the reactions to the food. So she said, right, what we've really got to focus on is high vegetables, high fruits, lots of salads, smoothies, and low fat. So she said, if I have any meat, which I wasn't having a lot of anyway, if I have any meat, that I must make sure that I cut off the fats. If I have chicken, I've got to take off the skin. If I have lamb, I've got to take off the fatty bits. If I have beef, I've got to take off the fat. Because she said, whatever you do, the fat of the meat will cause your acid reflux. So I'm thinking again, oh my God, like, please don't take any more off me, because that was always a bit I loved of meat. If I had meat, like the chicken skin was always the best and the fat was always the tastiest, the best bit. And I'm thinking, oh, like, you are literally taking away everything that I love to eat. So obviously, again, being desperate, I did go away and I did do that. But I really struggled with that diet. Again, to the point where I actually got myself, unfortunately, into a deep depression again, because I got a lot better mentally. My anxiety sort of went away and my depression was still there. I never got rid of it, but it wasn't as bad as being sat on the sofa, not wanting to do anything, being suicidal. Um, but I did unfortunately get myself back into this state again, just through what I was eating. Because I was just thinking to myself, I spent all day in the kitchen. I'm constantly thinking, right, what am I going to have for my lunch? And my lunch usually involved maybe a little piece of salmon, and then I'm not even kidding, about 6, 7, or 8 different vegetables, because I was told that all these different vegetables will improve my gut microbiome because it's variety. So I was cooking up all these different vegetables and all these different grains and sweet potatoes and all these different things. And I was trying to get in as much variety as I possibly could. But it did take over my life. So, like I said, I was thinking, what am I going to have? Trying to make up all these salads and just constantly trying to think of something different and varied to eat. Um, and it and because of that, I was literally in the kitchen all day, and that's how I got myself back into a depressive state. Because again, I thought, do you know what? If this is my life now, I don't want to live like this. I actually don't want to live. Um, because I would eat this food and I'd say to my husband, I'd have a great big plate of food, salmon and all this vegetables piled up. I'd eat it and I'd say I could eat that 3 times over. I'm still so hungry. And I just spent the day constantly starving. I was just hungry all the time. And so for snacks, what I started to do was have um, a bowl of porridge. I was just eating porridge about 3 times a day in between my meals, just to fill me up, because I thought porridge was quite filling. And because I couldn't have milk, I was having it with oat milk or almond milk. But I'd even eat the porridge, and afterwards I'd just be like, oh, I was never ever satisfied, and I was just constantly hungry.
And at this point, besides the depression, were your other symptoms getting better or getting worse?
So they all actually the lump in my throat always stayed away after going to her originally and cutting out the gluten and dairy. That completely had gone, and all the mucusy feeling, but the styes in my eyes and all the food reactions were still there, and that was what was frustrating. Because then I remember crying to my husband actually, saying, I'm doing everything I should. I'm eating as healthy as I possibly could be. And I never ever cheated. I was determined to get better. I would see people eating cake and chocolates. I'd be at events and I would not have anything. It was even Christmas and I did not touch a single chocolate or anything because I was that determined I was getting better. And that's what I found super annoying or frustrating was the fact that I was eating really, really healthy and I was still having reactions. And I'm thinking, why? Like, I'm not eating anything. I'm still reacting to what I'm eating. And then I sort of got in the mindset, well, if I'm reacting to a carrot, I might as well react to a chocolate bar because I just got to that point where I just couldn't be bothered with it anymore. I just exhausted it. I gone through absolutely everything and just felt like I've exhausted all my avenues really. Um, this herbalist, she also did a lot of medicine, obviously with herbs, and she put me on a concoction of all different things as well. So at the same time of doing this diet, I was on a concoction of all different things. There was a little barley grass, it was called, which is a little powder that you make into, you just mix it with water, make it into a juice. So I was having that about 3 times a day. And with these medicines, I must say, which also added to the depression, was when I was drinking them, I had to force them down and I was gagging when I was doing it. It was horrible. I would chuck it back and afterwards I'm like, physically I'm going to be sick. They were disgusting. They honestly not pleasant at all. I won't go through them all, but I have got a little list of everything that she put me on. Um, and these things I was taking every single day, um, which is obviously a lot of supplements. Um, Another one on there was something called slippery elm, which is again another little powder which is supposed to be really good for acid reflux. And I don't know if anybody's had slippery elm, but it mixes up to like a gloopy, snotty texture, and that is what you've got to drink down. And honestly, that in itself, this is this is why I became depressed again, thinking that I had to do that every single day of my life for the rest of my life. No, thank you.
You just reminded
Um,
me why I don't like oysters.
yeah, it's like that texture. It really is. Um, so yeah, I had all these different medications, and I remember one day going to a wedding actually, and because she said, "Oh, whatever you do, make sure you don't forget them, like ever forget take them." I went to a wedding, and I actually had a full carrier bag just full of stuff, and I was barely at the wedding because I was almost like I was on drugs or something because I didn't want to do it in front of people. I go to the toilet and just take all my like all my herbal medicines in secret. But I pretty much didn't really attend the wedding because I spent most of the day in the toilet taking my drugs. So so that was basically an insight of how my day went, along with eating super high vegetables and just not great food. And another thing I ate a lot of as well was which I've mixed into my porridge were like seeds and nuts, like flax seeds and chia seeds, and just as I just threw in as much as I possibly could for variety, um, thinking that I was doing really well for my gut microbiome and
Oh,
feeding
yeah.
feeding all my
E
gut bugs, all the great stuff.
eating the rainbow and being balanced. That's the best thing for you, right?
Yeah, well, that's what I thought. Um,
Mm.
but yeah, so I obviously tried that and it did not work. And like I said, I was still getting all these reactions. And also, I then started to get chronic constipation, which I'd never ever had in my life. I'd never actually experienced gut
So
issues
sorry,
themselves.
it's the ton of medications you're taking every the ton of herbal
Yeah,
medications is just blocking you up. Sorry.
yeah, probably. I was on so many. Um, but yeah, so like I said, I'd never actually had any gut issues in my life, and now all of a sudden, I'm experiencing. Sorry for the detail, but chronic constipation, um, endless gas. Like I'd never ever had that either, and all these things were just becoming a problem. And I'm thinking, what is going on? I haven't. These are now new symptoms. I've never had this problem. So I was really in a. I just didn't know what to do. And I did actually then go to a point, like I said, where I thought instead of eating and reacting to a carrot, I'm going to react to a chocolate bar because whatever I'm eating, I'm reacting to. So then I did go back to my standard diet, which perhaps having cereal for my breakfast or all the not so great things. But like I said, I just figured that if I'm going to react, I might as well react to things that I want to eat and find delicious. So that was sort of my thoughts really. Um, May of this year, I ended up in hospital having an emergency. No, March, sorry, not May. Um, I ended up in hospital having a emergency appendectomy. Um, I This was just before the day before that I was due to go on a juice fast. I was going to do a juice fast for 3 days, thinking that was going to be something that might really help me out. So, and that was again advised by my nutritionist because I went back to her and I said, look, I said, everything you've done for me is just completely not working. I'm fed up. I'm back in this depressive state. And she knew that because I'd go into her clinic literally in tears, crying, telling her that I don't want to live anymore. And I think she sort of thought, right, we'll do a juice fast on you. Like we'll see if this works. So I went away and I bought all the things for a juice fast, which was lettuce and all these lovely green vegetables, celery. I bought a juicer. I was really, yeah, I was going to do this. I was going to do this juice fast for 3 days. And I say luckily, but I ended up in hospital the night before I was due to do one with this appendicitis. I just experienced pain like no other. Anybody that's had appendicitis will know exactly what I'm on about. I actually would rather have a baby than have appendicitis. It was that painful. I'd never experienced pain like it. And when I went in, they said I had appendicitis and I had to have an emergency operation. Um, and it was since then, really, that I came out of hospital and I started eating well again, but I didn't do my juice fast. I thought now's not the time for a juice fast. Like my body's just had an operation, it's under a lot of stress. Um, and I just need to eat well, but I can't go back to my standard diet, but I'm not doing a juice fast either. So I just went back to my lots and lots of vegetables and low fat meat diet thing again. Um, and again, like I said before, I didn't really realize that I could get worse or think it was possible I could get worse, but my reactions were just worse than ever. And I was so ill. And it took me a long time to recover from this operation. And it was one day, I think must have been a Sunday, and I was cooking a roast dinner for my family. I obviously wasn't going to have it because I didn't eat that. So I had I think it's quinoa, like the little grain you can eat. So I had my plate piled with all these vegetables and quinoa, and they were having roast lamb, which I didn't really tend to eat because it was quite hard to cut the fats off of lamb. So I just thought I'm better off not to eat it. And I took the roast lamb out of the oven and I still can't really explain it to this day, but such an overpowering feeling of I just need to eat that lamb. I need to eat that. The smell and the look of the fat was just, honestly, I can't explain the feeling. It was just so overwhelming. Something telling me you need to eat that lamb. And I was so desperate. I was looking at it and thinking, oh no, I can't because it's so fatty and I'm going to end up with acid reflux and all this. And I was carving it up and putting it on the plate for my family. And I thought, oh, do you know what? I'm gonna search it. I'm gonna Google it and see actually how bad it is for me to eat a bit of lamb with acid reflux. So I ended up putting into Google, is eating meat really that bad for you? And I don't know how many things down it was, but it on one of those, something about the carnivore diet came up. And I didn't know what it was. I'd never ever heard of the carnivore diet. So I clicked on that and did some reading. And I thought, oh, that's interesting. And at the same time, because I was obviously on this diet where I was constantly starving, high vegetables and low fat, the thought of eating meat for all my meals, all day, every day, with the fat, which is something that I've always loved, was just like that diet to me sounded perfect. I was like, oh, that is my dream diet. I would do anything to eat that. I would love to eat that. And so I did a little bit more research on it. And then you obviously find I typed in the carnivore diet and then I found the reasons why the carnivore diet is so dangerous for you. So I read those and I'm thinking, oh, not sure really. I'm not sure if I should go down that route or not. And then I I just got into the spiral of researching the carnivore diet. And I did so much research. And that's when I ended up typing it into YouTube and I came across the doctors like Dr. Ken Berry and Dr. Chafee, and then also yourself and Kerry from Homestead How. And you guys were the ones who really, really convinced me that actually the carnivore diet might be the way to go. And again, I already thought that I had used my last hope, but I'm thinking, what have I got to lose? Like this could be my last hope. And then when I heard like testimonials of other people and then people curing autoimmune diseases and all these different things, I'm thinking, well, they're either telling the truth on these comments of what they've cleared up, or they're all just liars and they're all lying for some reason, if it did work for them or if it didn't work for them. So I thought, oh, sod it, I am going to do it. So I actually ended up eating some of that lamb that day, and I can honestly tell you it was the most delicious tasting food out of anything I'd ever eaten in the past. Any chocolate bar, any piece of cake, that was the most delicious food I had ever had in my life. I think because my body was so ready for it and just asking me to eat it. And then I was eventually ate it and my body was just like, don't stop, just keep eating it. And I just did. I had a bit. I didn't keep going until I was completely full because I still had that slight, or better not eat too much because of the fat and I might end up with acid reflux. But then after doing all that research, the next day I decided that's it. I didn't even plan, which I know a lot of people say you really should plan before you start. But I was so desperate. That was it. I woke up in the morning and I had 2 lamb chops for my breakfast, and that was it. And I fell into it like that, and that was how I started.
And this was around March, you said?
So this was May that I started the
May.
carnivore diet. March was
Okay.
my operation, and then I had about
Okay.
2 months of eating my healthy food again. And then this was May that I made the roast dinner for my family and did my research and started the carnivore diet.
When did it hit you, after you'd started carnivore, when did it hit you that what's the best way of saying this? Like, you know, the thought you had when you took the lamb out of the oven, it was like, that kind of the music, like, kind of
Yeah.
music, when you saw the lamb. When was the moment that happened that you suddenly realized, I finally found the solution? to all my problems?
Well, I think almost straight away, the first and the second day, I was just so happy that I was eating this way and that I had a diet that I felt so full. So I was literally doing what Dr. Chafee said, and I just ate until I was completely full. And at this point, I was still having my 3 meals a day because I was programmed then that I had breakfast, I had lunch, and I had my dinner. So I was eating just a couple lamb chops really for each meal or a couple burgers. But I was so satisfied after those lamb chops. I couldn't say, oh, I could eat that 3 times over. I was done. So it was just so I was so happy to find a way of eating. And I think my body was just so happy to be full and satiated. So that was the first thing that I noticed, and I was like, this is really like I hope this does work because this is really good. I love feeling full. I'm not hungry. I'm not starving anymore. Um, and it wasn't. I would say that I got about 2 weeks in because I was hit pretty bad with adaptation symptoms. I had honestly, you name them. Think I had every single one going. I didn't just have a few. I think
So
that's
it
me, to be
wasn't
honest.
constipation anymore.
No, oh no, no, that soon went away. The constipation, yeah, definitely turned into the other extremity. And I had that for I would say I think it was about 2 weeks. But I had everything else going as well. I had the keto flu. I had like muscle cramps. I had fatigue. I had acid reflux. I was even sick at one point with nausea. I had everything. I honestly had everything going. Um, but I think that's me, to be honest. I don't think I really do things by halves. I think that I just think that that's how my body works. It's all or nothing, and I definitely had all for the adaptation symptoms. But I didn't take electrolytes or anything, and I know a lot of people. Again, I was just desperate and wanted to get into it. I had no preparation, so I hadn't even looked at electrolytes. I hadn't bought any electrolytes. I hadn't even got salt at this point. I just went straight in. So I think I was probably going to react a little bit to that massive change of diet. But after about 2 weeks, and then that's when I suddenly started feeling wonderful. And then the penny did drop that I think, and I believed in it so much as well. So I kept saying to my husband, I think at the time I was probably really annoying him, but I was like reading all these like facts and these testimonials from people. And I'm like, look what it's doing to people. Look at this, look at this. And everything I read just made sense to me. And I'm thinking, do you know what? I'd read something and I would just be like, that makes perfect sense. Like, and it almost seemed too obvious, like when they're saying about the ancestors and how we would have lived. And I'm like, this is so obvious. We didn't eat processed food. Why did we ever grow up believing that eating processed food is fine? Like when they never had that available. All these like little simple things that I'm like, why haven't I seen this before? And all the pennies just started dropping, and everything made complete sense. And I think I just really, really believed in it. And I think that helped me carry on with it as well through those 2 weeks because I had such belief more than anything, more than all this rubbish, high veg, low fat diet and all that. I never believed in any of that. I was never satisfied. But because I believed it so much, it pushed me through and it all just made sense.
What improvements have you seen? Like depression gone, mood stabilized, things like that?
Oh my goodness. Yeah. So after the 2 weeks, yeah, my depression stayed away the whole time and my anxiety got better. I suddenly wasn't reacting to any foods anymore, because I was obviously only eating meat and had nothing really to react to. After the couple of weeks, my bowel movements regulated, so I had all normal bowel movements. And I would say, I know people have said before that you can think that you're constipated on the carnivore diet, but I was going sort of every 3 to 4 days. But the bowel movement was completely normal and very little, hardly anything. And again, which made me believe when I read that you're absorbing all the nutrients and you're absorbing everything you're eating, it's all proof. And I'm like, this is actual proof that this is what we're supposed to be eating. I've got no waste hardly. And if that doesn't mean something, I don't know what does. But yeah, I even had symptoms that I didn't even know were symptoms. So I had things like verrucas on my feet, which went away. And one massive thing for me was tinnitus. I had, ever since I can remember, I've had a ringing in my ear. And also, probably the past 3 or 4 years, it turned into pulsatile tinnitus, where if it was really quiet or if I'd lie down in bed at night, I'd get like a heartbeat in my ear, a thumping, and you could feel that, and that was really irritating.
So that
But
would
I
be
had
like
it.
having high blood pressure almost, right?
It might be. I
That,
don't.
like
I don't.
having that pulsing kind of sound. It's obviously that pulsing of a high blood pressure.
Yeah, well, that's exactly what
Yeah.
it was. And I just lied down, and all you could hear and you could feel it, just like it's just a strong heartbeat. You could feel it, and you could hear the thud, thud, thud. And when it first happened about 3 years ago, or whenever it was so irritating. But as time went on, I sort of learned to live with it. And I think my brain maybe sort of ignored it a bit. I don't know. Um, but that went away. And it wasn't until I was reading somebody's testimonial and they were like, I've got rid of tinnitus. I'm like, oh my God, I don't have tinnitus anymore. And I just didn't even think of that. So all these little things were going away, which I didn't even realize were symptoms in the morning. Like symptoms, sorry. In the morning, I would wake up with gunky eyes, blocked up nose. Quite often, my glands would be swollen in my neck. But I had this for years and years, and I honestly just thought that being a human being, that was just part of being a human being, that we wake up with gunky eyes and we've got to wash our eyes out in the morning. Um, and then all of these things just went away. I was no longer blocked up in the morning. My glands in my neck weren't swollen. Like I said, the gunk in my eyes were gone. And the thing about the sunburn is completely true, because I don't know if you can see from the video, but I'm very, very fair and I'm quite freckly. And all I had to do was look at the sun and I was burnt. I could never go out in the sun. I had to sit in the shade. I was such a shade seeker. And this year I've been out in the sun all summer long and I tanned, and I never ever have tanned in my whole life. And that's another thing I think I've been annoying my husband with. I'm like, look how tanned I am. And he's like, yes, that's great. But because I've never been tanned, it was really exciting for me because I've just never ever done that. And it's so true. I heard other carnivores say that you don't get sunburn. And like I said, I've been sat out in the sun all summer long and I actually tanned. I didn't burn once, which is just something that's just unheard of for me. So yeah, all these little things started clearing away. Um, and I used to, well, I said it was a reaction to food, like the ulcers on my tongue. But I remember I had those my whole life, like ulcers, and I just thought I used to get them after eating chocolate usually. But I just again just thought that that was something that as a human being you just put up with every now and then. You might get an ulcer on your tongue. I used to get even dry, cracked lips in the winter. I don't get that. It's just little things that I've started noticing that I just think I it must be to do with how I'm eating. It's got to be, because there's no other really explanation why I've had it my whole life. Now I'm suddenly eating this way and I don't get these little things anymore. Um, Another thing I forgot to mention was when I was on the high vegetable, low fat diet, I started losing my hair. And I just remember being in the shower or getting out of the shower and drying it, and I had these tiny little hairs, like, and I thought, oh my God, like my hair's going. I don't know what's happening. I did ask my nutritionist that, and she had no idea why, and she said that shouldn't be happening. But since carnivore, my hair, all that's gone, and my hair's like all grown back, and it's not thin anymore. It's all thick, and I don't get any of those little tiny hairs. And yeah, I just had so many things. I used to get Raynaud's. I don't know if you know. Do you know what Raynaud's is? So it's they call it Raynaud's syndrome, and your hands will just seize up. So I could be gripping onto something, and they would sort of get fixated like that,
Like
and
a
then it would
muscle
take.
cramp or something.
Yeah, I don't know. I really don't know what it is, but it was always worse for me when it was cold. So if my hands were cold and I was holding, say, a shopping bag or a shopping trolley, my hand would go completely white. So there's like no blood flow. It would completely numb, and it would take ages for me to be able to come back to that. It was just stiff like that, and it would take ages to be able to come back to normal position. And when I did, it was completely numb, and I'd have to like slap it and like to get the feeling back in my hand. And that went away, which I was not expecting the carnivore diet to get rid of that. I wasn't expecting it to get rid of a lot of these things, to be honest, but it just happened. It just started clearing up one thing at a time, and I'm thinking, wow, like I didn't all I was on it for was to clear up my food reactions. That's what I wanted gone. And obviously the acid reflux and all that I wanted to keep at bay. But yeah, when these things started clearing as well, and like I said, it wasn't actually until I was reading other people's testimonials when they're saying I've got rid of this, and then I suddenly think, oh yeah, I had that and I don't have that anymore. Tonsil stones was another one. I used to get them my whole life. I had tonsil stones, and they just disappeared. I hadn't had them, and it's honestly it's something I just couldn't believe some of the things that now looking back, of course, are symptoms, but I just thought that that's what we have to live with. If you get a bit of eczema, that's just being a human being. That's what I thought.
Mm.
But it's not. I think it's all to do with what we are eating.
Mm. It's a little bit like that when you start to have the joint pain as you're waking up in the morning and getting up out of bed, and you think, oh, it's just part of being human, just part of getting older and stuff. And we just
Yeah,
so like millions of us just accept that, and all we actually need to do is change our diet, and probably it's going to improve or completely get better.
yeah,
Um,
that's right.
y- yeah. So, how old are your boys? You said you got three boys.
I have, yeah. So one's 10, one's 7, and one's 4.
Okay. And so, are the boys, or is your husband joining you on this?
Well, this is a funny thing, really, because I was on at my husband for a long time. Obviously, he'd been through the whole thing with me. He'd seen me at my lowest, and he obviously wanted me to get better. So he'd seen the improvements in myself, and also with me banging on about all my little things, like, oh, look how amazing this is, look what this has done, and look what she's managed to clear. And he's had to listen to all this throughout. But he still wasn't quite, although it was helping me, he wouldn't have been in a position where he was going to try it for himself. um but he's always had little problems. I think everybody's got something, haven't they? Everyone's got some sort of little symptom or something. And he was really struggling with plantar fasciitis in his foot. And he also get quite a hamstring pain. And obviously, like the physical work he does being a farmer, he'd come in at night and he'd be like, oh, my foot, oh, it's so bad. And I'm like, do you know what you could do about that? And he's like, come on, plantar fasciitis has got nothing to do with what I'm eating. And I'm like, okay, that's all right. If you don't want to, that's fine. You might one day come round to my thinking, but I didn't push it. I was like, okay. I just sort of dropped little things every now and then. And he would also be very blocked up in the morning, constantly sort of had like hay fever symptoms. Um, and just recently we went away to London, and he ate like lots of rubbish. And after that, he said, you know what? After eating all that food, he said, my plantar fasciitis is even worse. And I said, I'm telling you, it's inflammation. It's inflammation in your body. I said, why don't you just try? I said, you don't have to go strict carnivore. I'm not going to force anything on anybody. I said, but just try cutting out all the other stuff. So cut out your bread and cut out all of that, which he did. And he started having bacon and eggs for breakfast, and then I'd make him like some burgers or something for lunch. He wasn't having his bread. He still kept his fruit in and dairy. So he's like having yogurt and milk and cheese, um, and lots of fruit. And he come into me the other day and he said, do you know what? He said, I feel absolutely fantastic. And those were his words. And inside, I'm like, yeah. And so he's got it now. And now it's quite funny because now he's the one. We go out and he's looking around. He's like, oh my God, if you look at people, look how sick they are. Look how much like excess weight people are carrying. Look at people, the bags under people's eyes, because he had really big bags under his eyes. And I said to him the other day, I said, look, I said, just look in the mirror. I said, look at those bags under your eyes. I said, they're nearly gone. And he looked and he said, they are, aren't they? And I said, yeah. I said, see, and so he's now really, he is really believing it now. And he's like, I can see
Is a
exactly what
convert.
they mean. He is, and I'm so glad, but I don't think he'll take the fruit out. But like I said, I'm not forcing anybody. I'm not forcing him to go strict carnivore, because what he's doing now is enough of an improvement for him to feel fantastic, in his
Mm.
words, and it works for him. So, and he's like doing a lot of work. He's like constantly on the move doing strenuous things all day. So he keeps the fruit in, which his body might need a few more carbs than what I do. I
Mm.
don't know. I'm not really into. I don't really know all the science on it. But it's working for him, and he is just predominantly meat, um, milk, yogurt, cheese, and fruit, and
Mm.
that's what he has now. He doesn't have anything processed and
I was gonna,
nothing.
I was gonna
No,
say, as a farmer, as a farmer, um, he must have so much more energy for his job now.
he does, and another thing he said to me. He said, "You know what?" He said he he didn't suffer with depression, but he said I that he always used to get a little bit of anxiety. So a couple nights a week he goes out. So one night he goes out and plays skittles, and another night he goes to football. And he said usually all day he'd be thinking, "Oh, I've got to go out later." And he said he's sort of built it up in his head that he's got to go out and see people, which is a, a sign of anxiety, really, I think. And he come in the other day and he said, you know what? He said, the motivation I've got, he said, I can get so much work done. And he said, I've got Skittles later. And he said, I'm not even worried about it. He said, I'm not even thinking, oh, I've got to go out later. He said, in fact, I'm looking forward to it. He said, I don't know what's happening to me. And I was like, it's all your food. This is all your food is doing this to you. And so now that it's worked on him, he's a complete believer now. And we quite often at night we sit on YouTube watching videos on carnivores, and we'll sit watching that together. It's a common interest again now. So we've got like
That's
this
awesome.
common interest, yeah. And we
That's
could just talk
awesome.
about it for hours.
Yeah,
Amazing.
that's
Yeah.
really good.
And as with the boys, I did try putting them on like a carnivore-ish diet, but it didn't go brilliantly to plan. It's a lot harder with children. So what we are doing for them now is that they are just on whole foods, so they have absolutely nothing processed, no seed oils, no sugar, um, nothing out of a box basically. So they don't have vegetables. I won't feed them vegetables. They think that's great because they don't have to eat vegetables. But they still have lots of fruit, and they have lots of dairy, and mainly meat. Meat is their main. I make sure that is the main thing on their plate, but they will have potatoes. I'll quite often make chips cooked in tallow and stuff like that
Mm.
for them. And throughout the week, they have a whole foods diet like that. And then on the weekend, we do allow them other things only because we can't, like I said, it's very difficult.
Mm.
And we did notice the last time that I tried putting him on a carnivore diet, one of my sons went to a party and he actually started to binge eat where he wasn't allowed it at all. He was at the table and it was quite embarrassing. He had a plate and he was just filling it with all the cakes and cookies. And it was like it was just like he didn't know when his next meal might be. So he had to fill up and all this. And I thought that's actually really unhealthy. Like that's not great for him to be in
Mm.
that mindset where he's got this sugar, so he's got to eat as much of it as he can. And I thought I'm actually triggering binge eating by not letting him have any. So
Mm.
on a weekend, they are allowed extra little
Yeah.
things. I hate to say it, but as treats
I,
for
I
them.
think, I mean, it's tough to get the kids completely
Hmm.
to give it up because even if you can do it at home, then they've got to like go to the party, so they've got to go to school and watch all the other kids doing. So it's difficult.
Exactly.
But I think the
Yeah.
important thing is if you and your husband are leading by example, that's going in there. And
Yeah.
it might not be now, it might be 10 years later, it might be 20 years later, but they'll look back and go, hang on, I remember mum and dad solved all their joint problems or all their anxiety or whatever it is just by changing their diet. I'm going to
Yeah.
give that a try.
That's
So,
what I kind of hope. I just kind of hope that we're going to be the leading example. And like you said, I just hope that one day, God forbid, if they did run into any problems, that they have that tool in their toolbox, that they know exactly what to do. They won't have to go down the route that I did and do all the research, because hopefully just from me they will have that knowledge of how to put it right and how to fix it.
mm,
My oldest son, actually, my 10-year-old, he already is starting to see how food impacts him, because I think now that they're on this whole food and they don't have processed food very often, I think their body is in a much healthier state, that when they do eat something that they get a reaction to it, whereas they never used to, because obviously they'd have been so toxic before that they wouldn't have reacted. But he said to me the other day, he had like a rash on his leg, and he said, "Look, mum," he said, "look at these spots on my leg." And I said, "Oh yeah." He said, "Do you think that was from the food from the weekend?" And so he's making these
uh,
relations. And I said, "Well, it could be, it might be." And then he said, um, again, sorry for the detail, but he was up on the toilet the other night and he said, "Oh, the kids are random, aren't they?" And he said, "You know, when I go to nanny's," I said, "Yeah." And he said, "And I eat so much sugar." I said, "Yeah." And he said, "Well, every time I go there," he said, "I get diarrhea." And he's like, "Do you think that's the sugar?" And I'm like, "Yeah, it probably is, Jack." So he's now making these connections between what he's eating and these reactions that he's having, which I think is a good thing, that he's sort of learned
yeah,
that, and he's learning how food is making his body feel.
that's awesome. That really is.
Yeah.
Um, I can't imagine me being able to do that as a 10-year-old. I was just like, yeah, whatever I can put in my mouth, I'm happy with.
Yeah, exactly. No, so I think, bless them, I think they've obviously had to listen to me bang on as well. But no, I think with kids it's very difficult, and you don't want them to be left out. And when they're with their
Mm.
friends, you've got no control what they're eating anyway. If a friend's got a bag of sweets and they're dishing it out, you can't be the one there going, "Oh no, you're not having any."
Yeah,
It's really
that's right.
difficult. But like you said, I just hope that in the future, when they're old enough, they'll have that tool in their toolbox, and it's up to them whether they want to use it or not. So
Yeah. So, you have a YouTube channel, is that right?
yes, I do. Yeah, I
Okay,
started
can you
it.
tell us about that?
Yeah, I started it. When did I start it? Back in June, I think. Just because I had recently gone to a wedding and I fell off um the wagon. Actually, I came off the diet only because it was very difficult. that at these weddings and things, they always have a vegetarian option or a vegan option, but obviously there's no such thing as a carnivore option. So I was at this wedding and it was either I don't eat for the 2 days. It was like an over a 2 day sort of event thing. Either I don't eat for the 2 days or I go back to eating normal. And I did think to myself, so it was all planned. I did think, oh, I'm gonna eat this food, and then I'll just go straight back to carnivore afterwards. But that was the reason for my YouTube channel, really, as I wanted to then document what was happening from the wedding, from going back to my day one, from carnivore again. And that time, I think it was within day one or day two, because as soon as I ate that food, my tinnitus came back. I went to bed that night and I got tinnitus, and I'm like, oh man, like I don't want tinnitus. But it was that quick. Um, and then I think within day one or day two of eating back carnivore diet, that just disappeared again, just like that. It had gone. But yeah, the reason I just thought, I obviously watch you and I watch Kerry quite a lot from Homestead How, and I just think how you're helping people. I just think that I now I have all this knowledge. It's hard to have this knowledge and not tell people about it. So I just thought if I could just help one person, then I'd be really happy. And I did
Mm.
have a lady message me the other day. um, she emailed me and she just said, I just wanted to say that I saw you on Kerry's channel they did the carnivore diet documentary and they put up all the little clips of all the testimonials, and I sent mine in. And she said, I saw you on there, and she said, and you're the one I can relate to the most. You're the one that I've got all the same symptoms as. And she said, I just want to say thank you because of having all the same symptoms as you have given me hope. And honestly, all day that just that one person just made my day. I just thought, I've helped one person, and that, as you all know, feels amazing. And I just think
Mm.
that that's why I sort of started it up. But to be honest, it has
Mm.
turned into a bit more of a farming channel now, because people like to see the farm. um
Okay.
but I just
Nice.
think that I'm there as a contact, that if people need my help, or if I can help them in some way, then that's all I want to do, really.
Awesome. So how can people find it on YouTube? Is it Farmer's Wife Carnivore Life? Is that the name of the
Yes,
channel?
yeah,
Okay.
that's right. Yeah.
Awesome. So I'll link to that in the description. And Lauren, thank you so much for joining us today and sharing your journey. It's been really great talking to you.
Thank you for having me. I've really enjoyed it.